My sister sabotaged me for years because I made success look too easy. For 27 years, I lived in a house where every achievement was dismissed as luck, every skill I developed was called natural talent, and my older sister made it her mission to destroy me for it. What my family never saw were the hundreds of failed attempts, the months of practice, the nights I stayed up fixing my mistakes. They only saw the final result and called me gifted. My sister saw something else entirely, a target. I need to be clear about something from the start. I'm not a prodigy. I've never been naturally good at anything. When I was 12, I decided I wanted to learn to draw. My first attempts looked like a toddler had a seizure while holding a pencil. But I kept going. 50 drawings that belonged in the trash. 100 more that were slightly less terrible. 6 months before I could sketch something that actually resembled what I was looking at. But nobody saw those 6 months. My parents walked into my room one day, saw a decent drawing pinned to my wall, and the narrative was born. "You're just naturally talented," Mom said, smiling like she'd discovered my superpower. My sister Emma, who was 15 at the time, went quiet in the doorway. I didn't understand that look then. I do now. It got worse when I picked up embroidery at 14. Same process, weeks of tangled thread, uneven stitches, patterns that looked like abstract nightmares. I must have restarted the same piece 30 times before my hands finally understood the rhythm. But the day I finished my first clean piece, Dad showed it to relatives. "He just picked it up and boom, perfect," he said, laughing. "Kid's got the golden touch." Emma was 17 then. And that's when the sabotage started getting creative. We shared a bedroom until she turned 18, and she weaponized every day of it. I had terrible health as a kid, weak immune system, caught everything that went around. Emma knew this. During winter, she'd wait until I was asleep and crack the window wide open. Not just a little, fully open, letting that freezing air pour directly onto my bed. I'd wake up shivering, already feeling that scratch in my throat that meant I'd be sick for the next week. She'd be in her bed, pretending to sleep, and I could never prove it was deliberate. She broke my things constantly. A model I'd spent 2 months building would mysteriously fall and shatter. My embroidery threads would disappear, then turn up cut into tiny pieces in the trash. My sketchbooks would get accidentally spilled on, and whenever something went wrong in the house, anything, she'd blame me. Dish broken? I must have knocked it over. Money missing from Mom's purse? I was probably the one who took it. They believed her every single time. I got punished for things I didn't do so often that I stopped defending myself. What was the point? The worst part wasn't the sabotage itself. It was the why behind it. Emma tried. She genuinely tried at things. She'd spend weeks practicing guitar and still sound off-key. She'd take art classes, and her paintings never quite came together. She'd join clubs and teams and always end up average at best. And every time she failed at something, she'd see me succeed at something else, and the bitterness would deepen. What she never saw was my process. She never saw me failing in private, learning in the shadows, putting in repetition after repetition until muscle memory took over. When I turned 16, I got interested in woodworking. I bought cheap tools from money from my part-time job at a grocery store. I cut myself more times than I can count. I ruined piece after piece of wood. Measurements wrong, cuts crooked, joints that didn't fit. It took me 4 months before I built a simple box that didn't fall apart when you touched it. But that box, that one functional box, ended up on the kitchen counter, and suddenly I was a natural craftsman. Emma saw it and didn't say a word. She just stared at it with this cold expression that made my skin crawl. That night, she dumped an entire bottle of wood stain on my other projects while I was at work. Months of work ruined. When I confronted her, she said I must have left the bottle open. Mom sided with her. "You need to be more careful," she told me, like I was the irresponsible one. I thought things would improve when Emma finally turned 18 and moved out for college. I was 15, and for the first time in my life, I had my own room, my own space, freedom from her constant interference. I thought I could breathe. I was wrong. With Emma gone, my parents' full attention landed on me like a spotlight I never asked for. Dad, who'd always been a casual drinker, started hitting it harder. He got laid off from his job around the time Emma left, and instead of looking for new work, he found the bottom of a bottle. And when he drank, he got mean. Not physically violent, but verbally vicious. He'd corner me in the kitchen and go off about how I thought I was so special, so talented, such a golden boy. He'd mock the things I made, call my hobbies wastes of time, tell me I'd never amount to anything because I was soft and spoiled. Then the money started disappearing. I was still working at the grocery store, saving everything I could. I kept my cash in a lockbox in my closet. Twice a month, like clockwork, I'd open it and find $20 or $40 gone. I confronted Dad once. He got in my face and screamed at me for accusing him, called me a liar and a disrespectful punk. Mom stood right there and said nothing. The money kept disappearing. I started keeping my cash in my backpack, taking it with me everywhere. Mom transformed into someone I didn't recognize. The woman who'd been passively dismissive became aggressively controlling. She needed to know where I was every moment of every day. If I went to a friend's house, she'd call every hour. If I was 10 minutes late coming home, she'd be waiting at the door with a lecture about responsibility and respect. She went through my phone constantly, read my messages, checked my call history. Privacy didn't exist. The worst part was the isolation she enforced. I couldn't date, couldn't even talk to girls without getting interrogated. When I was 17, I mentioned a girl from school I thought was cute. Mom's face went cold. "You're too young to be thinking about that," she said. "You need to focus on your future, not on some girl who'll distract you." She made it clear that any relationship I tried to have would be sabotaged, so I stopped trying. She'd pick my friends apart, find reasons they were bad influences, push me to stop seeing them. Slowly, my social circle shrank to almost nothing. Every decision in my life had to run through her. What classes I took, what job I worked, what hobbies I pursued. She had an opinion on all of it, and if I didn't follow her opinion, she'd make my life hell. Guilt trips, silent treatments, passive-aggressive comments that wore me down until I just agreed with whatever she wanted. It was easier than fighting. I tried to move out when I turned 21. I'd saved enough for a deposit on a tiny apartment across town. When I told my parents, Dad laughed in my face and said I'd be crawling back within a month. Mom cried, actually cried like I'd told her I was dying. She went on about how she had sacrificed everything for me, how ungrateful I was. She brought up every nice thing she had ever done for me, made me feel like the worst son in the world for even thinking about leaving. I canceled the apartment. I stayed. This pattern repeated every couple of years. I'd start making plans to leave, and Mom would deploy every manipulation tactic in the book. She'd get sick, conveniently timed with my moving plans. She'd talk about how dangerous the world was, how I wasn't ready, how I'd fail without their support. She'd promise things would get better if I stayed. Then nothing would change. Dad would oscillate between mocking me for wanting to leave and guilting me for being selfish. The walls closed in tighter every year. By the time I hit 25, I was barely functional. I was still working, still making things in my free time, but I felt hollow. The hobbies that used to bring me joy became just motions I went through. I'd learned photography, taught myself basic coding, picked up 3 languages through apps and textbooks, but none of it mattered because I was trapped. The praise from strangers online for my work felt empty. The dismissive, "You're so lucky to be talented," from my parents felt like acid. I was a performing monkey in a cage, and I couldn't remember what it felt like to want something for myself. Emma would visit occasionally, usually for holidays. She'd gotten a job in marketing, had her own apartment, seemed to be doing fine. She'd make small comments about my situation, little digs that my parents would laugh at. "Still living at home, huh?" she'd say with this smirk. "Must be nice having everything done for you." I wanted to scream at her, tell her about the money Dad stole, the control Mom exerted, the prison I was living in. But what was the point? She'd made my childhood hell and walked away clean. It wasn't going to be my savior now. Then, 3 months before my 27th birthday, I matched with someone on a dating app. Her name was Riley. I almost didn't message her. Mom had drilled it into me that I wasn't ready for relationships, that I'd mess it up, that I needed to focus on other things. But something about Riley's profile made me take the risk. She was into art, played bass guitar, and had this energy in her photos that felt genuine. Our first conversation lasted 6 hours. We talked about everything: books, music, the weird pressure of trying to be creative in a world that wants you to monetize every hobby. She got it. She understood the exhaustion of being told you're good at something when you know how hard you work for it. She shared her own stories of family dysfunction, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. We met up 4 days later at a coffee shop. I was terrified Mom would somehow find out and sabotage it, so I told her I was going to the hardware store. Riley showed up in this paint-stained jacket, hair tied back, and when she smiled at me, something in my chest unlocked. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her graphic design work, her dreams of traveling, the falling out she'd had with her controlling ex who tried to manage every aspect of her life. I told her about my family, more than I'd ever told anyone, and she didn't judge. She just listened and said, "You deserve better than that." We saw each other every few days after that. I got good at hiding it from my parents, making excuses, meeting Riley during times they thought I was at work or running errands. For 2 months, she was my secret escape, the one thing in my life that was mine and mine alone. She encouraged me to make plans to leave, not in a pushy way, but in a way that made it seem possible. "You're almost 30, she said one night while we were walking through a park. "You've been ready to leave for years. What's stopping you?" "Fear," I admitted. "Fear that they're right, that I can't make it on my own." She squeezed my hand. "You've taught yourself a dozen skills through sheer determination. You work full-time. You're not the person they've convinced you that you are." That conversation changed something. Riley and I started talking seriously about moving in together. She had a 2-bedroom apartment, and her roommate was moving out. The rent was affordable if we split it. It was across the state, far enough that my parents couldn't just drop by, but close enough that I could visit if I wanted to. It was perfect. It was terrifying. I spent a week building up the courage to tell my parents. I planned out what I'd say, how I'd handle their objections, how I'd stay firm. When I finally sat them down and told them, Dad's reaction was predictable. "About time," he said, not looking up from his beer. "Go ahead and fail. I'll enjoy watching it." Mom's reaction was worse. She went silent for a long time, and then she started crying. Not the manipulative crying from before, but actual sobbing. "How could you do this to me?" she kept saying. "After everything I've done for you, you're just gonna leave?" I held firm. "I'm 27, Mom. It's time." "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice going cold. "This girl, Riley, you barely know her. She's gonna use you and throw you away, and you'll come back here broken, and I'll have to fix you." "That's not gonna happen," I said. "It will," she insisted. "You're not ready for this. You don't know how to live on your own. You don't know how to handle real problems." "I've been handling real problems my entire life," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "You just never noticed." The next 2 weeks were hell. Mom tried everything: guilt, anger, bargaining, threats. She told me I was ruining my life. She told me Riley was manipulating me. She cried, she yelled, she gave me the silent treatment. She oscillated between all three. Dad mostly stayed out of it, except to occasionally mutter about how I'd be back within 6 months. Emma called me once, told me I was being selfish and hurting Mom, then hung up before I could respond. But Riley was there through all of it. She texted me encouragement when Mom was at her worst. She helped me pack in secret, storing boxes at her place so my parents wouldn't see. She reminded me why I was doing this every time I felt myself wavering. Moving day came on Saturday. I'd rented a small van, and Riley drove 3 hours to help me load it. My parents didn't say goodbye. Mom locked herself in her bedroom. Dad sat in the living room staring at the TV, pretending I wasn't carrying boxes past him. As I loaded the last box, he finally spoke. "You'll be back," he said. "They always come back." "No," I said. "I won't." The first month in the new apartment was an adjustment. Riley and I had to learn how to live together, navigate each other's habits, split responsibilities. But it was good, better than good. I could breathe. I could come home from work and not walk into a minefield. I could make plans without asking permission. I could exist without being diminished. Mom still tried to maintain control from a distance. She'd call and demand to know what I was doing, who I was with, why I wasn't answering her texts fast enough. She'd bring up Dad, tell me he missed me, that I should call him, that he was getting worse and it was partially my fault for leaving. She'd hint that I should send money, that they were struggling, that I owed them. But now I had Riley backing me up, reminding me that I didn't owe them anything, that their problems weren't mine to fix. The first time I told Mom no, outright refused one of her demands, she lost it. Screamed at me over the phone about how disrespectful I was, how she'd raised me better than this, how Riley had poisoned me against my own family. I let her rant, then calmly said, "I have to go now," and hung up. It felt like breaking chains. Riley helped me see things clearly. The natural talent narrative my family pushed wasn't about celebrating me, it was about dismissing my effort so they didn't have to acknowledge their own inaction. Emma's sabotage wasn't about my success. It was about her refusal to put in sustained work for her goals. My parents' control wasn't about love. It was about their need to have someone beneath them, someone to manage because they couldn't manage themselves. I wasn't ungrateful or selfish for leaving. I was surviving. Looking back now, I don't regret the years I lost. They taught me something valuable. When people refuse to see your effort, they're telling you who they are. My family needed me to be effortlessly talented because it excused their own lack of trying. Emma needed me to suffer because my success highlighted her unwillingness to persist. My parents control because without someone to control, they'd have to confront their own dysfunction. I'm done being that person for them. I found someone who sees the work behind the results, who values the process as much as the outcome, and that makes all the difference. I'm not naturally anything. I'm just someone who keeps going, and for the first time, that's enough. Update. Mom finally backed off, but the damage runs deeper than I thought. It's been 8 months since I moved in with Riley, and I wanted to share an update because a lot has changed. Some of it's good. Some of it's complicated, and some of it made me realize just how much damage was done that I'm still working through. Mom finally gave up, not all at once, but gradually, like watching someone lose a chess game in slow motion. The constant calls dropped from daily to weekly. The guilt trips became shorter, less intense. About 3 months ago, she stopped trying to manipulate me entirely. She just went cold instead. Now when we talk, which is maybe twice a month, and only because I initiate it, her responses are clipped and formal. "That's nice. I'm glad you're doing well. I have to go now." She's holding a grudge that I can feel through the phone. This silent resentment that I dared to set boundaries and actually enforce them. She's waiting for me to apologize, to admit I was wrong, to come crawling back and beg forgiveness for choosing myself. That's never gonna happen. I've cut Dad out completely. We haven't spoken since the day I moved out. He sent a few texts over the months, usually late at night, probably when he's been drinking. They're either mean-spirited jabs about how I abandoned my family or requests for money that he frames as loans he'll definitely pay back this time. I don't respond. I blocked his number 2 months ago, and honestly, I should have done it sooner. Riley asked me once if I felt guilty about it. I don't. You can't feel guilty for removing poison from your life, even if that poison is related to you by blood. Emma tried reaching out once, about a month after I moved. She sent this long message about family unity and how I was tearing everyone apart by being distant. It was so transparently an attempt to play mediator, to make herself look like the good sibling while painting me as the problem. I read it, didn't respond, and haven't heard from her since. I'm fine with that. She made my childhood hell and never once apologized or acknowledged it. I don't owe her a relationship now. Living with Riley has been everything I hoped it would be and more. We found our rhythm. She's a night owl, does her best design work between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., so I've learned to be quiet during those hours. I'm an early riser, up at 6 to work on projects before my day job starts, and she's learned to sleep through my coffee grinding. We cook together most nights, nothing fancy, just simple meals where we talk about our days and make each other laugh. She introduced me to her friends, good people who treat me like I matter, who are genuinely interested in the things I make and don't dismiss them as lucky accidents. I'm learning what healthy relationships look like, and it's so different from what I grew up with that sometimes it still feels surreal. The apartment is ours now in a way that feels real. We've painted the walls colors we actually like. We've hung up our art, hers and mine, side by side. We've built a life together that doesn't involve walking on eggshells or hiding parts of ourselves. Some mornings I wake up before my alarm, look over at her still sleeping, and have this moment of pure gratitude that I got out, that I found this. I've started thinking about proposing. Not in a vague someday sense, but in a concrete, I want to marry this person sense. Riley is it for me. I know that the way you know the sun will rise tomorrow. She's my partner in every way that matters. We've talked about the future, about what we want from life, and we're aligned on everything important. Kids eventually, maybe in a few years, a house with a workspace for both of us, travel when we can afford it, building something together that's ours. In my head, she's already my wife. When I think about my future, she's in every part of it. When I make decisions, I consider how they'll affect us, not just me. We've built this partnership that feels more real and committed than any legal document could make it so. But I'm not ready to make it official yet, and I'm trying to be honest with myself about why. The truth is, I'm not okay. I'm better than I was, significantly better. but I'm not healed. The years of being dismissed, sabotaged, controlled, they left marks I'm still discovering. I have this constant low-level anxiety that something's going to go wrong, that Riley's going to wake up one day and decide I'm not worth the effort, that I'm going to mess this up somehow because I don't actually deserve good things. I know logically that's not true, but logic doesn't always reach the parts of you that got broken early. I struggle with decisions in ways that frustrate me. Simple things like what restaurant to pick or what color to paint the bedroom. And I freeze up. 27 years of having every choice made for me or criticized left me with this paralyzing fear of choosing wrong. Riley's patient about it. She'll offer options and reassure me that there's no wrong answer, but I can see it wears on her sometimes. She shouldn't have to manage my anxiety around basic decisions. I'm working on it, but progress is slow. I have nightmares sometimes. Not every night, but often enough that it's a problem. Dreams where I'm back in my childhood bedroom and Emma's there, or Mom's yelling at me, or Dad's going through my things. I wake up with my heart racing, and it takes me a few seconds to remember I'm safe, that I'm in my own apartment with Riley asleep next to me. She's been understanding, but it's not fair to her that she has to deal with me jolting awake at 3 a.m. because my subconscious won't let go of the past. The biggest issue is that I don't trust my own judgment about people. Riley's friends have been nothing but kind to me, but I'm constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to reveal they actually think I'm worthless or weird or too damaged. Years of having my achievements dismissed as luck trained me to not believe genuine praise, and I hate it. I want to be able to accept kindness without suspicion, but I'm not there yet. I've thought about therapy. Riley suggested it a few times, gently, never pushing. She went through therapy herself after her bad relationship, and she says it helped. I know I need it. I know I'm carrying around trauma that I can't process on my own, but there's this block in my head, this voice that sounds a lot like Mom's, telling me that therapy is for weak people, that I should be able to handle my own problems, that talking to a stranger about my feelings is self-indulgent nonsense. I'm trying to push past that voice, but it's hard. I want to propose to Riley when I'm healthier, not perfect, I don't think I'll ever be perfect, but healthier than I am now. I want to stand in front of her and ask her to marry me without this weight of unprocessed trauma hanging over me. I want to be the partner she deserves, someone who's done the work to heal, who can show up fully without constantly flinching from ghosts. She deserves someone who's whole, or at least working toward wholeness with professional help, not someone who's just white-knuckling it through each day, hoping the damage isn't too obvious. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent my entire life teaching myself skills through sheer repetition and determination, proving over and over that I could learn anything if I put in the effort. But this, healing from a toxic family, learning to trust people, believing I'm worth good things, this is the hardest thing I've ever tried to learn. There's no clear practice regimen, no measurable progress markers, no moment where it suddenly clicks and you're fixed. It's messy and non-linear, and some days I feel like I'm moving backward instead of forward. Riley knows all of this. We've had long conversations about it, about my hesitation to make things official, about the work I still need to do on myself. She's not waiting impatiently for a ring. She's told me multiple times that she's happy with where we are, that she's not going anywhere, that I should take the time I need. That patience, that understanding, it makes me love her more, and makes me want to be better, faster, so I can give her everything she deserves. I look at the life we've built and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of us. We've created this space where we're both free to be ourselves, to pursue our interests, to support each other without trying to control or diminish each other. It's everything my family never was. And maybe that's why I'm dragging my feet on making it official, because some part of me is still waiting for it to fall apart the way everything in my childhood did. Some part of me doesn't believe I'm allowed to have this much happiness without paying for it somehow. But I'm trying. I'm looking into therapists, reading reviews, working up the courage to make an appointment. I'm being honest with Riley about my struggles instead of hiding them. I'm learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. It's slow going, but it's going. And maybe that's enough for now. Maybe healing doesn't have to happen on a timeline. Maybe I can work on myself while also building this life with Riley. And maybe I don't have to be perfect before I make it official. Maybe being committed to the work is enough. I'm still figuring that part out. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.